Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas Tutora. Welcome to Tutora Time. The silencing of free speech continues. Facebook's independent review board has decided that Donald Trump should be removed from Facebook permanently. Although later in the day they updated it till they'll re-examine the issue come November. Folks, this is downright scary, and this is completely un-American. Donald Trump was the president of the United States. How can you possibly silence the voice of the president of the United States? In the 2020 election, Donald Trump received 74 million votes. How can you possibly silence the voice of somebody who has 74 million votes for president of the United States and was a sitting president? Obviously, 74 million people in the country don't feel that what Donald Trump says is misinformation or disinformation or not worthy of publication. Obviously, those 74 million citizens don't think that Trump should be silenced. And when you silence Trump, you silence the 74 million who voted for him. This is straight up authoritarianism. Jen Psaki, Joe Biden's press secretary, commented on this today, saying how, they don't really see it as a problem to free speech, and they're not going to get involved in Facebook's independent process. This is ridiculous.
Facebook has decided to keep former President Trump off of its platform for now. Senator Ted Cruz tweeted the following: for every liberal celebrating Trump's social media ban, if the big tech oligarchs can muzzle the former president, what's to stop them from silencing you? What do you make of that comment? Does he have a point?
Well, let me first say that this is an independent board's decision, and we're not going to have any comment on the future of the former president's social media platform. That's a decision that it sounds like the independent board punted back to Facebook to make in the next 6 months, as I know you all have reported. The president's view is that the major platforms have a responsibility related to the health and safety of all Americans to stop amplifying untrustworthy content, disinformation and misinformation, especially related to COVID-19, vaccinations, and elections.
Are there any concerns, though, about First Amendment rights? And where does the White House draw the line on that?
Well, look, I think we are, of course, a believer in First Amendment rights. I think what the decisions are that the social media platforms need to make is how they address the disinformation, misinformation, especially related to life-threatening issues like COVID-19 and vaccinations that continue to proliferate on their platforms.
So what the United States government is now doing, they're following the definitions and guidelines of fascism. Fascism is where the government works hand in hand with private organization to control the agenda, to regulate people socially, and to marginalize those who don't go along with the official government doctrine. And this is what they're doing. The government doesn't need to silence free speech because Facebook will do it for them. And this nonsense that Facebook is a privately held company, so therefore they could do what they want, it doesn't hold water. It's the slimmest of technicalities. It is a public free speech platform. It's no different from a telephone company deciding you can't use the phone if they don't like what you're talking about.
So his view is that there's more that needs to be done to ensure that this type of misinformation, disinformation, damaging, sometimes life-threatening information is not going out to the American public.
Also, what is this definition of disinformation or misinformation? All that really means is anything the left says it means. They ran for 2 years with the Russian collusion story. No proof, no evidence, complete conspiracy theory, complete false narrative. But yet they don't consider that disinformation or misinformation, although it was. The Democrats were out there every single day saying that Donald Trump is a Russian spy. Complete misinformation, complete disinformation. When did the citizens all of a sudden require a nanny? When did we become so stupid that we can't decide what's truth and what's not? So if you don't agree with what Donald Trump says, what do you care what he's saying? The only thing you have to silence is the truth. Falsehood falls of its own weight. If somebody gets on TV and makes wild claims, people most likely are not going to believe them. But it's up to the people to decide. I don't agree with one thing that Joe Biden says. To me, he's President I mean, truthfully, I get along with everybody, but that guy, just looking at him, kind of makes my skin crawl. I don't agree with anything Joe Biden says, but I don't want him banned off of social media. I don't want Kamala Harris banned for disinformation. The whole white supremacy narrative and systemic racism narrative is complete misinformation and disinformation. It doesn't mean anything. You can't point to anything that actually goes on. It's just some kind of vague, nebulous term that they throw around to make you believe there's something to be afraid of, to make you believe that America is a corrupt country. The left's going around saying America is systemically racist and rotten to its core, basically, and Trump is the one spreading disinformation. You're entitled to say whatever you want in America. You're allowed to lie. Unless you're under oath, you're allowed to lie. You could get on TV, you could get on social media and make up any story you want that a spaceship landed and aliens came out and they all looked like Ronald Reagan, or they all looked like Hubert Humphrey, and they decided to abduct you, and you landed in a field in Wyoming where you were taught their secret messages. You're allowed to say that. If people don't want to believe you, they don't have to believe you. This is horrible.
Are there any concerns, though, about First Amendment rights? And where does the White House draw the line on that?
They're silencing free speech by calling everything disinformation and misinformation. And if they can silence Donald Trump, a former president of the United States, they can silence anybody. The left must be really afraid of the truth, or else there's no need to silence. Look on Facebook any day, on Twitter. There's so much nonsense there. No facts, just opinions. But if those opinions are in harmony with the left, that's fine. What about every time the left spews out the word racism? Every time on Twitter or Facebook, the left calls people racist. That's disinformation. Do they have proof of what they're saying? Can they prove that people are racist? They cannot. So how do they get away with calling people that? I guess it's their opinion. I guess you're allowed to say your opinion, unless, of course, you're not on the left. Then you're not entitled to your opinion. And going along with the new information and speech codes, do we have to all agree now that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter of JFK? Because that's the official government report, and we're not allowed to go against it. You know, they talk about spreading misinformation about COVID and vaccines and safety. There's a drug called thalidomide that was pushed strongly for pregnant women in the 1950s, said it was safe, ended up causing massive birth defects. There are plenty of drugs and side effects from vaccines that are negative. And we've always been allowed to expose that. We've always been allowed to talk about it. But yet during COVID, all of those questions are off the table and they're not allowed. This is not what America is supposed to be. And folks on the left, you know it to be true. Plus, you don't only want to hear one side of the conversation. How dull does that get? I'm fighting back against big tech tyranny and the silencing of free speech. I will be launching my own Roku station within the next week, and it's going to be a platform for free speech. I already have the servers in place, so it's not something that could be canceled. So we're going to be reaching out to all like-minded people, people who are in favor of free speech and people who want to get their political message out, or any message out for that matter, so we can make the station the hub where free speech lives. More details will follow, so stay tuned. In the meantime, keep speaking out. Do not give in to censorship. And if you're in favor of censorship, I'm sorry. That's not American, and in your heart, you absolutely know it. And while we're talking about free speech, this station, Tutora Time, has been on the air for about 3 months, and we have been spreading the word, and we've been speaking out against the cancel culture and groupthink. So help us spread the message. Share the podcast with friends, those you might think are interested. Repost, subscribe, click the notification bell. Folks on the left, look into the mirror. Look what you're really advocating. Remember, today the mob is keeping Trump off of Facebook and Twitter. Tomorrow, it may be you. You might be in the in crowd now, but that's not going to last long. And also send the podcast out to some people that you think it might irritate. Because truthfully, we need to get through to those people. People who are on the fence and people who might not agree with us, those are the people we really need to reach. We need to get through to them and bring them back in line with the principles of liberty and freedom. Remember the American phrase, I might not agree with what you say, but I would fight for your right to say it. I'm Nicholas Tutora, and I'll talk to you again soon on Tutora Time.